The legendary Chupacabra is on a killing streak throughout South Texas.
The jugular had been cut, and there was a spray of blood.
That was horrible. It was carnage.
For years, no one could uncover the identity of this vicious vampire. Now, 3 rare DNA samples are headed to the lab for analysis. Will they prove the existence of an otherworldly predator? Bones in the Nevada desert are thought to be evidence of the Kraken, a gigantic sea monster that devours anything in its path.
A Godzilla-sized cephalopod could exist in the deep ocean, and we would essentially not even know that it had ever been there.
Could these skeletal remains finally validate a larger-than-life legend?
Hey guys, I'm Hannah. Just your average California girl. Sunshine, beaches, and the occasional demonic possession. This is Panic TV. Okay, horror fam. If you're into this, and this, then this next movie is totally your vibe.
Quero, Texas is a small southern town with a population around 7,000. But this seemingly ordinary place is home to one of the most frightening creatures in the world. A fully preserved cadaver believed to be that of the legendary Chupacabra. The first sightings of the evil beast are reported throughout Puerto Rico in the 1990s. The name Chupacabra comes from a Spanish phrase for goat sucker, describing the creature's insatiable vampiric cravings. It attacks pets and livestock, drinking their blood and leaving behind their drained carcasses. To this day, its rampage of gruesome slayings has continued, spreading to many parts of the world, including South Texas. Its description fits no existing biological classification.
There definitely is a possibility that there could be a species we don't recognize out there. We found several new species of things over the last few years, including of large mammals.
And its killing methods puzzle even the best forensic experts. Chupacabras are cunning hunters who have eluded capture for years. Now we have a specimen, an actual monster in the flesh.
So many people said, oh, well, I've seen that animal years ago. That is nothing until they come to my house and they set their eyes on it.
The bloodsucker is completely hairless, has strange paws, and bizarre pouches on its haunches. Some write it off as a mangy dog. Others say it's a strange, unidentified species. Or a government experiment that spiraled out of control. To find the truth behind this supernatural serial killer, scientists will analyze how this hairless beast differs from a mere dog, coyote, or wolf. Experts will dissect footage capturing a real-life Chupacabra in action. And labs will test 3 unique Chupacabra DNA samples.
I'm very excited and curious to find out exactly what this animal is.
2005, Quero residents report sightings of a blue-skinned beast wreaking havoc in their backyards. Then, numerous animals are killed, left bloodless, but otherwise intact. Dr. Phyllis Canyon spots signs of an unusual creature on her property.
First time I saw footprints or tracks, I thought were very unusual because they didn't really match a coyote track and they didn't match a cat track or a dog track. So that was the first indication that maybe something was around that I had not seen before.
Phyllis is driving on her ranch when she catches a glimpse of the strange animal in action.
Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move that seemed to be moving in a very unusual manner. It was probably 25 feet away, and it was an animal that I had never seen before. I was pretty shocked. There was no doubt in my mind that when I looked at it, that it was something beyond a coyote or a wolf. The features on it were too bizarre and unusual.
It doesn't take long for the chupacabra to sniff out dinner in her chicken coop.
There were no feathers, and the damage to the body had only been done in this throat area. When I picked the chicken up, there was no blood on the ground.
Soon, Dr. Canyon discovers a second dead chicken, then a third.
And there was a bit of fear that began to arise, thinking maybe I need to be a little more cautious whenever I'm out.
She loses a total of 28 birds. Word and worry spread quickly through Quero.
When I started mentioning it to the area ranchers, some of them were the ones that came up and said, oh, well, that must be the chupacabra.
Over the next few years, Dr. Canyon hears reports of dead chupacabras. But the carcasses are always destroyed, as fear drives people to burn the remains or throw them in the river. Then, a neighbor calls with incredible news. One of the beasts was hit by a car and is lying dead on the side of the road. She jumps at this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see the creature in person.
And the first thing that I looked at was the paws, and they matched the pattern that was in the sand. So I knew then that this was the animal that I had been seeing.
Dr. Canyon studies the chupacabra's strange features. The paw prints they leave behind are nothing like that of a dog or coyote.
Coyotes and wolves generally have 4 very distinct digits and pads on the front, and then 1 pad in the middle. And these appeared that the 2 middle digits were actually attached somewhat. The top was still separated, but the bottom, when it actually left an imprint, made it look like it was 3 rather than the 4.
She notices other unique characteristics. A broad face with a short snout, a piercing set of blue eyes, bluish, leathery skin, a long tail, and strange nodules on its rear end, a feature not seen on any known canine species. Experts are stumped by the unusual nodules and cannot explain their purpose. There's one other odd physical attribute that separates the chupacabra from the canine pack.
All canines have 4 nipples on each side, and this one only had 2. And that was very unusual to me because it was 2 at the front and not 2 at the back.
My own personal opinion is that we are dealing with some type of genetic mutation, freaks, if you will. And I think that it's only a matter of time before we're able to determine whether or not there is a genetic component, whether these animals are passing these characteristics on through breeding.
Could this abnormal specimen prove that a South Texas legend is a real-life nightmare? Berlin, Nevada. The desert of the Silver State is the last place you'd expect to find evidence of a sea monster. But this seemingly normal turn-of-the-century mining town is home to one of the largest collections of marine reptile bones in the world. Ichthyosaurs were enormous prehistoric ocean predators with huge jaws lined with razor-sharp teeth. Among these fossils are 9 eerily clustered skeletons, forever preserved in a precise arrangement that has long baffled paleontologists. broken necks, and unusual scratches are evidence of what may have wiped these creatures out so long ago. A massive tentacled beast, bigger than any giant squid living in our oceans today.
It's not beyond the realm of possibility that an invertebrate could grow to unbelievable sizes.
The Kraken. Tales of the Kraken have existed for centuries. A terrifying sea monster that propels itself from the depths to devour whales, sailors, and anything else foolish enough to cross its path. Now, folklore turns into fact as scientists expose evidence of the elusive Kraken. Experts analyze the ichthyosaur bones to explain how the legendary Kraken killed the whale-sized reptiles, and why the Kraken used its lair to arrange their bones in a strange pattern. Scientists also study unique physical and behavioral characteristics of the Kraken's modern-day relatives, the giant squid and octopus, to get to the bottom of this watery mystery once and for all.
We still relatively know very little about them because they live at very great depths and they're rarely ever seen. So that brings up the question, what else could be down there? Is there something bigger that we haven't found yet?
The Kraken could be proven true, and it might still be roaming our oceans today. Berlin, Nevada is littered with ichthyosaur fossils from the Triassic period, which lasted from 248 to 206 million years ago. Back then, this desert was at the bottom of an ocean dominated by massive prehistoric reptiles designed to latch onto prey and devour it whole.
These guys were the absolute top of the food chain. There was nothing that would take these guys on. They were the apex predator.
So, I mean, they were essentially the T-Rex of the oceans back then.
But now, a new scientific theory proposed by paleontologist Dr. Mark McMenamin suggests that an even bigger predator was hunting those waters: the Kraken. The Kraken is one of the world's first mysterious monsters, and its legend has grown over time. Sabina Magliocco is professor of anthropology at California State University, Northridge.
The word Kraken comes from a Germanic word meaning twisted or crooked, and that refers to the tentacles of the Kraken, which, twist around and grab ships and people and sea life and other things and draw them into this giant maw that the beast has.
Documented sightings and horrifying encounters date back hundreds of years. Squid-like in some ways, but of enormous proportions. Tentacles as big as buildings, with suckers the size of car tires. And an appetite for ships and sailors. The first record of the Kraken shows up in a 12th century chronicle.
𝑽𝑷𝑬𝑹𝑵𝑨𝑻 journeys to Baffin Island, and he and his sailors see two giant sea monsters that they are just horrified by.
In the 17th century, Norwegian bishop Erik Pontoppidan wrote that ancient mariners would often mistake Kraken for landmasses.
Pontoppidan described a humongous multi-armed sea monster capable of sinking ships as a result of the massive whirlpools that it would left in its wake. Perhaps the most remarkable encounter involved a Danish sea captain off the coast of Angola, West Africa.
Captain John Magnus and his crew are cleaning their ship when suddenly something attacks.
Kraken!
enormous tentacles grab a sailor and drag him underwater.
The rest of the crew rushed to his rescue, and they managed to sever the tentacle of this creature. The tentacle was about 25 feet long, and it was covered with suckers.
They drive harpoons into the body of the beast. Eventually, the creature submerges, and the battle ends. They save the tentacle to show others proof of the massive killer lurking in the deep. Could that same killer sea monster have arranged ichthyosaur bodies in the Nevada desert millions of years earlier? Robin Riggs is a Berlin State Park ranger.
Our Ichthyosaurus shawnosaurus popularis, and he's 56 feet long and 40 tons, or roughly 4 school buses. Each flipper is 6.5 feet in length, and then the skull alone is 10 feet long.
And that's just one ichthyosaur. Imagine taking on 9 of these beasts, each the equivalent of today's predatory sperm whale. Only the Kraken is capable of doing that. And it kept their broken ribs and twisted necks oddly arranged in its lair.
In this area right here, you can see we have the front flipper assembly, and then we have various vertebrae coming down the hill with ribs on either side of those vertebrae.
Some believe that the only way for this number of animals to die so clustered together is if they were methodically set that way.
Something like a gigantic cephalopod may have lived perhaps in the past, may perhaps still be alive today, and would have been responsible for this particular assemblage of different animal remains.
Dr. Lars Schmitz is assistant professor of biology at Claremont McKenna University. His research revolves around discovering new fossils in Nevada's Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park. He studies creatures who lived millions of years ago.
The site that we have in Nevada is absolutely exceptional. What we have there is, in one layer, about 8 to 9 individuals of these ichthyosaurs, reaching up to 15 meters in body length.
The skeletal remains show evidence of bone fractures and deep scratches that may indicate an ancient monster preyed on the ichthyosaurs. They're alarmingly similar to the marks that a modern-day cephalopod, like a giant squid, leaves behind on sperm whales. Giant or Humboldt squid rarely back down from a fight, even against opponents that outweigh them by hundreds of pounds.
They're very aggressive, and you would expect that of a species that large groups are competing for food. They'll feed another squid. There are accounts of them attacking each other, but that's when one's being brought to the surface, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. The encounters with divers, they're interesting. Actually, a friend of mine some time ago was off La Paz, and he's a marine biologist, and he was doing these nightlight diving things with the quote giant squid, which were Humboldts, but who knows the difference. And he was down there, and one grabbed onto his leg and started pulling him down, and he freed himself from it. But you get in the water with these guys, they are aggressive, and what you'd expect of any schooling predator.
But the Kraken of legend is no giant squid. It's 100 times the size, more vicious, with an intelligence that is unrivaled. Dr. Raymond Wells is a professor of biology at Pierce College in Los Angeles.
The beak that belongs to the Humboldt or the jumbo squid, it's pointed, it's sharp, really nasty, and it's supported by a tremendous amount of muscle mass, so they can take a nice chunk of flesh out with that beak.
If the beak empowers a giant squid to take on a sperm whale, it's possible the Kraken did the same with ichthyosaurs. With new information on the elusive creature's behavior and the skeletal remains in Nevada, scientists believe this sea monster not only thrived during the Triassic, but could still exist today. Bloodthirsty vampire beasts known as chupacabras are terrorizing Quero, Texas. But there's only one fully preserved specimen in town, and it belongs to Dr. Phyllis Canyon. Chupacabras are extremely difficult to capture, so not many DNA tests have been performed on them.
I'm aware of a handful of DNA tests that have been run on these different chupacabra animals. The first specimen was actually shot in April of 2004 by a rancher in a place called Elmendorf near San Antonio, Texas, and it subsequently became known as the Elmendorf beast.
Bones, skin, and teeth submitted for DNA analysis came back with conflicting results. The skin sample proves the beast was a carnivore that once had a full coat of hair, which rules out the Mexican hairless dog. The teeth are similar to both a feral domestic dog and coyote, possibly a hybrid. And mitochondrial DNA results show a mix of wolf and coyote from Mexico or Texas. So the Elmendorf beast is a mix of canine species. But Dr. Canyon's specimen has unique features not seen on the Elmendorf beast. That, along with DNA analysis, might identify a new species altogether with odd evolutionary traits. Scientists prepare to test DNA from not one, but 3 different chupacabras to try and determine its genetic makeup once and for all. In Quero, Texas, Dr. Phyllis Canyon has a preserved specimen of the terrifying chupacabra. Her cadaver is virtually hairless, leading some to believe all she has is a mangy coyote. Independent expert Dr. Charmin Hoppes is a clinical associate professor at Texas A&M University. She's seen more than her fair share of mange and the damage it can do to an animal. Mites cause mange when they invade and burrow under the skin. Severe itching drives the animal to scratch, which leads to hair loss. They can even suffer secondary bacterial and yeast infections.
This is actually of a dog that has severe sarcoptic mange. And you can see basically the folds, the thickening of the skin, the hair loss, the pyoderma, the infection of the skin. So basically this is basically a severe ear infection. You can see how thickened and crusty it is from the infection. So you can see ulcers here where he's really scratched excessively. You can see how thickened the ears and skin are and the muzzle, and again, the hyperpigmentation that occurs with chronic skin disease.
Phyllis sends tissues from her chupacabra to a California lab for analysis.
We did multiple skin samples, we took x-rays, we did MRIs, we did the CAT scans, we did everything.
And they test for mange, analyzing the specimen's skin samples to decipher if that is what caused the creature's hairlessness.
They were all negative. All the tests that we did indicated that it did not have any type of mange, nowhere on the body.
Many people have tried to liken them to essentially mangy coyotes. Mange usually leaves a result whereby an animal has very patchy sort of bunches of fur still left on its body, although there are some areas where it has scratched off or chewed off the hair. Phyllis's animals seem to be almost completely hairless, although they do have a very, very light coating of hair. If you look very closely, you can see that.
One theory is that these creatures were created by the US government. Coyotes injected with a chemical cocktail designed to wipe out their population. The experiment spiraled out of control, resulting in a genetic monstrosity. Some religious groups believe the vampiric chupacabra is a living weapon created by the US military, a top-secret genetics program to build trainable monsters that could attack without any loss of human life. But science tells another story, one that can't be disputed. And the 3 DNA samples may definitively prove the identity of the elusive chupacabra. In Berlin, Nevada, an intricate arrangement of ichthyosaur skeletons is thought to be the handiwork of a kraken, an enormous sea monster. Scratch marks indicate a sharp beak broke the ichthyosaur's necks. Modern-day kraken relatives, like squid and octopus, are also cunning killers.
Octopus, they are intelligent. They learn by trial and error. We had so much trouble keeping them in tanks out at USC's Marine Lab. I mean, if there was a way to get out, they'd get out, but I guess no reasoning, they couldn't get back in. So we would find them, we'd smell them, or we'd find them, you know, like dried out, pasted to a wall some places. They'd escaped and managed to pour water all over the floors and so on. They don't have reasoning. They aren't able to take prior knowledge and apply it, but they definitely learn by trial and error.
Evidence of lair building supports the theory that the kraken actually lured ichthyosaur prey into its slaughterhouse, then violently played with its food and laid out the remains. Today, even the kraken's much smaller relative, the octopus, relies on lairs to trap and eat prey.
What's interesting about cephalopods is that they'll actually construct small forts or structures that they live in, and they're surprisingly intelligent animals.
They'll eat lobster and crab and so on, but they don't like to feed in the open. So they'll have a lair, which is an area that they have pulled the rocks out from underneath some other rocks, and they'll eat back there.
The modern octopus will stack the remains of its prey in its lair and play with those pieces, just like the kraken. The largest octopus on record is the giant Pacific octopus. With its tentacles extended, it measures up to 30 feet long and weighs more than 600 pounds. Yet that's nothing compared to a sea monster like the kraken. Did this prehistoric beast leave a blueprint of its killing field that can be recognized by mainstream science? In Berlin, Nevada, an eerily arranged mountain of bones stands testament to the insatiable appetite and intelligence of the kraken. Despite popular belief, the kraken isn't a giant squid. It's probably a close relative, just many times bigger and far more dangerous. But the giant squid helps illustrate what kind of deadly weapons krakens are armed with. Giant squid are known to be wildly unpredictable killers, attacking scuba divers and pulling fishermen into the sea. Their eyes are the largest in the entire animal kingdom, a whole foot in diameter, and they work like a pair of night vision goggles, spotting prey in total darkness.
If you play soccer ball, that's the size of the giant squid eye in very large individuals. One of the things that helps them to do, having these big eyes, is to detect sperm whale from a much larger distance. So in a way, it may help them to see the sperm whale approaching. Fact is, the larger the eye, the better the visual capacity in the deep sea.
With its much larger eyes, the kraken can see much further. When giant squid set their sights on something tasty, they have the tools to reel it in.
They have on their tentacles, which are the 2 long arms they use for prey capture. At the very end, what they have are these chitinous hooks to grab onto prey, which makes them very effective predators.
with needle-like teeth on each sucker. Once they get hold of you, there's no escape. Now envision how scary a run-in with an even more vicious kraken would be.
Some whalers have described seeing sucker scars similar to an octopus on sperm whales. And these particular scars have been described as being anywhere from 12 inches to 18 inches across. A cephalopod that leaves a sucker scar 12 to 18 inches across would be mind-boggling.
They'd be fishing sperm whales. We've been fishing sperm whales for a long time, and they would find bites out of them, big suckers on them, and they were probably familiar with cephalopods. So I think it's another place where the lore came out, was because they, for them, especially in the days of whaling, when you're using road chase boats and hand-thrown harpoons, and Mocha Dick, who was later on Moby Dick in Melville's novels, there was a lot of interaction between them, and so they would see these sucker marks. Can imagine what these ferocious battles, given how hard it was for them to take these beasts.
Millions of years ago, the Kraken would have used a lethal combination of all these weapons to slay giant ichthyosaurs.
There was a possibility that a giant kraken, even bigger than these giant ichthyosaurs, came along and broke these guys' neck. And apparently it was an intelligent kraken, and it reassembled the vertebrae to emulate his tentacles.
Some believe the beast carefully lay the vertebrae side by side in a pattern that mimicked that of the massive suckers on its tentacles. Could the Kraken have lived millions of years ago? And is it still out there? Experts aim to finally find out. Chupacabras first appear in the tiny South Texas town of Elmendorf in 2004. Then, the monster makes its way 70 miles east to Quero, Texas. It's been proven not to have mange, has never before seen nodules on its back end, and like a vampire, sucks the blood of its prey. It's an evolved killer predator.
If she walks into that basement, I swear. Oh, she did. She always does, doesn't she?
And sightings continue. There's not just one chupacabra killing livestock around town. There's a whole population of them that can provide us with more evidence. In 2008, one does. On a dirt road near Quero, a police officer records evidence of a strange creature on his dashboard camera. The beast is eerily similar to Dr. Canyon's. It's hairless, with a small snout and shorter legs in the front than in the back, causing the creature to run with a bizarre gait. Because this specimen darts off into the brush, no samples are available for DNA analysis. However, to someone familiar with all the features of a true chupacabra, this was just more proof of its existence.
That was the ultimate, because there was more conclusive evidence that those animals are out there.
Ken Gerhardt is a field researcher who's traveled the world looking for mysterious creatures. An expert on chupacabras, he's well aware of the beast's lust for blood.
I have been on the track of the so-called Texas chupacabra for about a decade now. The Texas version of the chupacabra has been alleged to drink the blood of small farm animals like chickens, goats, and so forth. There are no known mammals other than vampire bats that have developed a taste for blood. The consumption and digestion of blood requires a very specialized digestive system that most animals do not have.
But perhaps the chupacabra does. Wild canines, like coyotes and wolves, typically rip their prey open and feed on the meat. But the vampiric chupacabra delivers a bite, then sucks all the blood out of its prey. It's possible this creature evolved not only to digest blood, but also to depend on it as a source of nutrition.
Why does it crave blood? I'm thinking this animal has to have some type of vitamin or mineral deficiency that it only craves what is in blood, which is iron.
Ken has examined half a dozen carcasses of these strange creatures. But it isn't until 2011 that he finally gets the chance to obtain a DNA sample of his own.
One of these animals had been road-killed near a place called 𝑺𝑼𝑷𝑬𝑹𝑵𝑨𝑗𝑚. There were a number of cars pulled over to the side of the road because people were all standing around gawking at this thing because it looked so utterly bizarre and weird.
Ken removes a sliver of the monster's tongue and part of the jaw before freezing the rest of its remains. Inspecting the jaw further, he notices a set of teeth perfectly designed for puncturing skin.
It was completely lacking its incisors, and its canine teeth were grown to enormous proportions. I'd say that it's very hard to relate them to something that is common or ordinary.
The only way to find out for sure is through DNA testing.
DNA testing on my specimen would help me place it within the big picture of the Texas Chupacabra. Is it closely related to the animals on Phyllis Canyon's property? I'm very excited and curious to find out exactly what this animal is.
Ken's not the only curious one. One of Dr. Canyon's neighbors has an unexpected run-in with the monster and acquires another DNA sample. With 3 Chupacabra samples ready to test, scientists might finally learn the truth behind this bloodthirsty canine. Quero, Texas may be a small town, but it's home to a big mystery. Dr. Phyllis Canyon's preserved Chupacabra specimen. In 2011, Ken Gerhard obtains a new DNA sample from an unidentified creature in Rudersville, Texas. In 2013, James Hunnam, who lives just down the road from Dr. Canyon, manages to secure a third sample.
I noticed an animal coming across the open coastal field, and I looked at it and I saw it was something that didn't look right, and it was heading toward me. So I got out of my truck, went to the back seat, got the rifle out, and looked at it through the scope. Put the crosshairs between his eyes and pulled the trigger. And he went down right there. I've never seen anything like it.
To try and solve the mystery of what this creature is, James has a piece of its tongue preserved for analysis.
I really believe we shot a Chupacabra. It definitely was not a coyote, there's no doubt about that.
Having 1 specimen to test is lucky. Having 3 is equivalent to winning the lottery. The 3 samples are on their way to the lab to finally determine what kind of species this animal is. In Berlin, Nevada, ichthyosaur bones from the Triassic period tell a terrifying story. Paleontologist Dr. Mark McMenamin is credited with the theory that the unique arrangement and beak marks on these carefully placed skeletons were made by a kraken. However, cephalopods, including the kraken, don't leave many fossils behind.
Looking at the fossil record for cephalopods, for some of them we have good records because they had hard body parts like the nautiloids and ammonites and things related to them. But when it comes to the soft-bodied, such as the octopus and squids, which would only have a pen or a remnant of their mantle, it's a lot less. It's hard to find fossilized material that's soft. It's all soft tissue.
Cephalopods come without pretty much any hard parts. They have a beak, can be very strong. They have little hooklets on their tentacles. For the groups for which we do not have a good fossil record, there's probably much more we can potentially learn. I wouldn't be surprised to find cephalopods throughout Earth history that we may not know of.
Like the kraken, who terrorizes the seas.
Do I think the kraken could have existed? If I were to look at this in terms of, could there be a large prehistoric cephalopod that we don't know about? absolutely, I could accept that this creature existed.
Cephalopods live anywhere from the ocean's surface all the way down to the pitch-black abyssal plain, a depth of 4,000 to 6,000 meters. And some speculate it goes even deeper. Typically, we only see giant squid when they die and float to the surface. So, what other denizens of the deep live in the trenches?
Deepest one is 11,000 meters. We have found things like 𝑁𝑹𝑼𝑬, which was an invertebrate thought to be extinct for 1 million years, and pulled one out of the trenches and realized that it had still been in that area. So you could make that argument that they're well hidden in the trenches. We would assume that there are invertebrates and a lot of creatures that we have not yet really become familiar with, and some could be very old, or some could be species that are fairly recently evolved, but this is where they live.
The ocean is a vast, scary place. Some of the strangest and most terrifying creatures in the universe could lie beneath the surface of the waves, waiting to be discovered.
The average depth is about 12,000 feet, and there are some deep trenches that you could literally fit Mount Everest into.
When you're looking at the larger octopus that are deeper, they'd be far less likely to move around that much. Their metabolic rate is low, and so they wouldn't be very effective at chasing. And they're probably feed by, and especially look at their food, ambush. So they sit and wait on the bottom, which is another reason I think of if there were something like the Kraken, it'd be highly unlikely for it to come to the surface.
New evidence will continue to come to light, and new species will always be discovered. Until then, scientists look to the future to anticipate the next great mystery.
Of course, there are other mysteries. There definitely are going to be more out there that we haven't found yet.
I think there's much to learn about our oceans, and largely, they are still unexplored. Every week we have new discoveries, and these are very exciting. I'm sure there are some surprises waiting for us.
The Kraken could have lived millions of years ago, and it might still be out there, camouflaged in the depths of one of the most unexplored frontiers on Earth, the ocean. Still ahead, the results of the Chupacabra DNA tests. Could cutting-edge genetic analysis finally unlock the secrets to this mysterious vampire beast? The Chupacabra is a legendary monster that has mystified scientists for years. Now, 3 unique samples may finally shed light on what these creatures really are. Ken Gerhardt's and James Hunnam samples shipped to Texas A&M's Animal Genetics Lab. Clinical professor Dr. Gus Cothran will use markers in the DNA to try to match the samples to a known animal.
It will tell you whether you get a match, what that match is to, and it will also then tell you what the closest thing is if it doesn't get a positive match. We ended up actually doing 8 separate sequences, and we then blasted those sequences against the gene bank, and we got a match.
In the tongue sample of Ken Gerhardt's specimen, Dr. Cothran sees markers for Canis lupus familiaris, which is the domestic dog. Next, Dr. Cothran tests the 2013 DNA sample from the creature James Hunnam captured.
It is what we call a coy dog, a hybrid between a coyote and a dog. The interbreeding between coyotes and dogs is actually fairly common, particularly as the coyotes become more and more adapted to living in cities and around humans.
Then, there are the results from Dr. Phyllis Canyon's preserved sample. According to the University of California, Davis Veterinary Genetics Lab, Dr. Canyon's Chupacabra is a hybrid species. Coyote on the maternal side, Mexican wolf on the paternal. Not only do these species traditionally not interbreed, but Mexican wolves have not been seen in Texas for over 80 years.
What we know for a fact, that it is a hybrid, because there is no DNA in the gene pool that matches. So we know for a fact that we have something different.
But neither the Mexican wolf nor the coyote has a hairless body, distinct paws, or strange nodules on its rear. And neither of these canines is known to be a bloodsucker like the chupacabra.
All right, horror fam. Who's the real villain here? I have some theories, but I want to hear yours. Drop them in the comments.
The behavioral aspects of hybridization are going to be mixed, but in general, it's said that the coy dogs are a bit more aggressive than the coyote or the dog.
Interbreeding may contribute to the chupacabra's temperament, but it's possible evolution is responsible for their unusual physical makeup.
Evolution of organisms where they change in their physical characteristics is all due to changes in the DNA. Mostly it's mutations that could be due to rearrangements of the sequence of DNA in an organism's chromosomes.
We could actually be looking at a form of spontaneous evolution. We know that evolution can happen in an instant for reasons completely beyond our realm or ken of understanding, and perhaps that's what's happening here.
Could this have caused the creature's lust for blood, unique foot pads, and nodules on the back end? Nearly 90% of Earth's creatures remain unknown.
There definitely is a possibility that there could be a species we don't recognize out there.
Including the chupacabra, a frightening and monstrous animal on the rise, with dozens spotted throughout the U.S.
I think they're everywhere. I really do. I just don't think people have been aware and know what they're looking at when they see one.
When you put it all together, here's an animal that I've never seen before, that has strange behavior, that has bizarre features, that kills animals in a different fashion of anything that I have ever seen and witnessed in my 62 years of life on this earth. That's really where the mystery is, because it just doesn't exactly match anything. Not in its behavior, not in its look, and certainly not what is conclusive evidence of its DNA. People want to know, is this the chupacabra? And I say yes.